everybody, it is Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Happy New Year, and welcome back to another episode of Stats, Trends, and Picks over here on That's Comical. And if you're watching and it happens to be a Wednesday, Happy New Comic Book Day. Well, here we are. I know it's the first video of 2025 in this segment, but we obviously have to look back at December, as well as all of 2024, as a matter of fact. And I want to start off with something that I did not anticipate discussing today. Before I put this last video together, I took a look at what I was doing back in the end of 2023 and my total purchasing of comics of 2023. And then I remembered the New Year's resolution that the manager of my local comic book store put out there for all of the Wednesday Warriors and, of course, all the other customers to see. And that was, are you going to read more new comics, or are you going to read a lot more new comics? And I said more comics because of where things were going and the news that I was hearing and the fact that a lot of things that I thought I was going to continue reading ended up not happening. Of course, my thoughts about the big two, lots of different things. But in the middle of 2024, I sorta kinda marched back into the store and told the manager I think I need to change my New Year's resolution. Because when we take a look at the total number of December of 2024, as well as all of 2024, I went from ending 2023 in the 400s in total comics to just a little over 600 comics in 2024. Now, there's a lot of reasons as to why this happened, and a lot of things that I did not expect to actually happen. Number one, I gotta say that the reasons why I ended up having so many more comics, I mean, along with the Ultimate Universe hype over at Marvel, which really has filtered to this point, it's the fact that the end of Absolute Power in the DC Universe gave us the Absolute Universe and the DC All-In Initiative, and I cannot get over how many amazing reads I'm reading right now from DC Comics and what's coming in 2025, literally in the coming days. As well as the fact that not only did the Energon Universe just do so much amazing stuff for the reader of comics, especially people who, whether they want to read something new from Robert Kirkman or just feel that nostalgia buzz with Transformers and G.I. Joe, along with having good writers on them, you know, that's a big positive as well. Jeff Johns' Ghost Machine universe just wowed me. The fact that every single Ghost Machine title out there right now I am reading, and they're great. And then probably the biggest surprise for me was what's going on with Dynamite, as well as a couple of other smaller companies like Mad Cave Studios, tapping into that nostalgia bug and giving readers so many classic characters from comic strips, mangas, and animes and cartoons from the 1960s all the way through the 1990s, titles like Space Ghost, Gatchaman, Dick Tracy, Johnny Quest, Powerpuff Girls. It's all been great. And that's my issue right now. I thought that I was really going to be cutting back. And the reason why I'm not cutting back is not because of the fact that I'm just getting everything that I can get my hands on. It's just the fact that I'm giving everything a chance. And almost everything I'm reading, I would probably say about 90% of all the comics that I'm reading, and I think I'm reading about 50 to 60 titles a month right now, they're all so good. They really are great stories, along with great artists giving us the work. The Ghost Machine universe says it all. When you take a look at all the great artists that are attached to these books, you got Brian Hitch attached to Redcoat, you have Jason Fabok attached to Rook Exodus, you have Peter Schneeber attached to Hornsby and Halo, you have Gary Frank attached to Geiger, you have Ivan Reis attached to Hyde Street, and to top it all off, you've got Francis Manapul attached to Rockefellers. You cannot deny that all of this stuff is good, along with the great writing. Same thing with the Energon universe. Josh Williamson, Daniel Warren Johnson, and Robert Kirkman are writing the three titles. And and then just throw in all the other great books that are out there, like David Pepos' Space Ghost, what's going on in the Miller world with the end of Jupiter's Legacy, as well as the end of Nemesis. There's just so many great things that are out there right now, and it's really hard to say no. And then there's even new stuff, like Garth Ennis' new independent label with a bunch of other writers and artists, Ninth Circle. I just read Freddy the Fix, and it just stuck with me. It's a fantastic time for comics, whether you want to believe it or not. Forget about what you're hearing regarding the big two. The indie world is where the future is of comics, and, I mean, take a look at what happened in December. 22 DC titles, you know, and every single one of them I'm reading is great. Ran V's New Gods is amazing. I've been reading Christopher Cantwell's Challengers of the Unknown, Jeff Lemire's JSA, Mark Waid's JLU. It's all great. And Jeremy Adams is the hot button item right now because his Green Lantern run is stellar. He's got Aquaman coming in January. He's got Green Lantern Corps coming in February. It's just so much more. And Marvel's just continuing to drop. I'm going to check out the newest offering from them in the Ultimate Universe. I'm expecting it to be fun, but I'm not expecting it to be great. I mean, right now I'm anticipating only reading the Ultimates and Ultimate Spider-Man right now. Image and the other conglomerate, their numbers are a little bit lower, and that's due to two specific things. Number one, the fact that we have an issue right now going on with Diamond Distributors because they're downsizing. A lot of the indie titles don't necessarily make it to my store in time, so it's really hard for me to get them and read them in time. I'm still waiting on my last two titles from 2024. They got to my comic store just a little too late, and I haven't been able to pick them up. And then there's also the fact that a lot of titles are just being pushed due to time constraints and just writers and artists not getting their work in on time. So then when we take a look at the percentages, we see that 40%, I mean, look at everything. Look at DC Comics. This is the very first time that I think I've ever hit 40% in regards to total monthly inventory. And Marvel, you know, surprisingly has gotten close to 15%, but it's still nothing compared to what happened over at DC or Image. And the other conglomerate, now just growing and growing and growing, and I think it's only going to get better because there's more great titles from Dynamite and Dark Horse and Boom Studios that I'm excited to read. And then because of the fact that we hit the end of the year, it's only right to show, besides the actual graph, I mean, you take a look at what happened with DC. They started high, they took a bit of a dip, but now they're just way ahead of the group. Image took a small dip, but they're definitely still there, and it's just nice to see the other conglomerate just slowly coming up and up and up. Marvel, I don't really know how they're going to recover at this point. And then we get to take a look at the total statistics. I've been collecting since 2019, and I started doing these shows since 2021. It is just amazing to see what's gone on with the trends, and DC, I have to say, despite a very few amount of downturns, they've just been at the very top almost the entire time, and I'm very proud of that. I mean, I'm so glad that DC is still very much there and still has my interest. But that's what happened in 2024, and I'm really curious to see what's going to be happening in 2025. And I'm not going to overassume, I'm not going to jump the gun. I'm anticipating a great year of reading. I'm anticipating the Energon universe and the Ghost Machine universe to be at the top spots and just like shattering the big two. But I am expecting some big things to come from DC, especially with what's happening in March. So how did we fare in the final month of 2024? Not horrible. As a matter of fact, two of my predictions were correct. One of them unfortunately had to be changed due to the fact that the book never showed up at my store until it was too late, so we just had to make do. So for the first week of December of 2024, I knew that Dick Tracy #6, the new story arc over at Mad Cave Studios, I knew that this was going to be my favorite read. This book was probably one of my biggest surprises. It actually ended up being in my top 5 of 2024. This really is a fun book. Classic Dick Tracy fans and new Dick Tracy fans alike are going to appreciate it. I appreciate the dark noir tones, and I'm just excited to see where the rest of this story arc is going to go. And yes, I will be getting the Valentine's Day special in February. For the second week of December, this was my top 3 book of 2024. I mean, it came out of nowhere. David Pepos just surprised everybody. So many people in the comic book community have been talking about and raving about Dynamite Comics' Space Ghost, and issue number 8 was probably one of the most powerful books we've seen so far. It goes into a little bit of Space Ghost's past, and it only got us very excited after the cliffhanger and what's coming in January with issue number 9. But Space Ghost is the real deal, guys. Out of all the nostalgic books, this one is way ahead of the rest, and I highly recommend it. For the third week of December of 2024, I was thinking that I was going to be giving it to Ram V's new DC project, The New Gods, issue number 1, as part of the All In initiative. It was a very good book. But the book that came out on top, though I shouldn't really be surprised because it came out on top many, many times as I've been reading it, it's Rick Remender's The Sacrificers, issue number 13, over at Image Comics. This book is just so good. I cannot describe enough or praise enough how this book is. It's something that's just so crazy powerful. It really makes you think. It makes you uncomfortable in a good way. But oh my goodness, I cannot give Rick Remender enough accolades for a book like this. This was my favorite book of 2023, and it's still going strong. And for the final week of December of 2024, the final week of 2024, it was so cool to actually go in on Christmas Day because my store was open for the purposes of letting people escape their Christmas and Hanukkah and holiday plans and just spend a little bit of time at the store. And I got there and there were like 6 other people in the store and we were just having a great old time. But I didn't get the book that I thought was going to be my number 1, and that was Tony Fleeks's Uncanny Valley number 7, the start of the new story arc over at Boom Studios. The book arrived on Monday, January 30th, and the manager of my store had just come back from a weekend trip, and he hadn't cataloged all the books yet. So I'm not going to pick this up until the end of the first week of January, but I'm still looking forward to reading it. But the number 1 book of that week turned out to be a great book regardless, and I gave this first issue the number 1 spot when it came out last month, and it once again goes to Image Comics, the Ghost Machine series, Hornsby and Halo, issue number 2 by Peter Tomasi. This is such a fun book, and it's so unique and different to me. I just get so excited to pick this book up, and I have so much fun with it. And all the time, so far, only 2 issues, but I really wonder what's going to happen next every time I close the book. And I'm making a new rule in regards to how I rank my comics for what will be the best of the year. When it comes to miniseries, I've already had this rule, and that is if a larger portion of your miniseries was taking place in the year after it released. So like if you had a 6-issue miniseries that started in November of 2024, so only 2 issues, but then the rest of them came out in 2025, that's a 2025 book. My attitude now for comics that are ongoing series or maxi series, if your first story arc did not complete before the year was over, it counts for the following year. So that means Hyde Street, Hornsby and Halo, The Rockefellers, all the absolute titles, JSA, JLU, they're all now in the running for my top spot in 2025. So I'm excited about that. So that was the end of 2024, and now we have to look to 2025. Oh boy, you guys are going to have fun with this, and so will I. For the first week of January of 2025, not only is it a 5-week new comic book month, what a great way to start off 2025, but there are some weeks that I was so undecided that there were multiple titles that I gave the number 1 spot to, and I'm curious to see how they're going to fare. For the first week, I actually gave it over to Denny Camp's The Ultimates number 8 over at Marvel Comics. This book, along with Ultimate Spider-Man, are the only 2 series right now that I'm actually enjoying. I liked the 1 Year Later one-shot special, and I really liked the first part of the second story arc of The Ultimates. And the fact that this book is going to introduce to us the very first version of The Ultimates Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm very curious to see who's on the team and how the story is going to continue. For the second week of January of 2025, I couldn't decide. So I just decided to pick the 3 titles that I knew I was the most excited for. 2 of them are written by the new DC Wonderkin, Jeremy Adams, and that, of course, is Aquaman, #1, artwork by John Timms. And then, of course, we do have the return of the Green Lanterns with a brand new story arc, starting with a one-shot called The Fractured Spectrum. And this is going to lead into the new Green Lantern title story arc and the new Green Lantern Corps, both done by Jeremy Adams. Cannot wait. And then we've got the Ghost Machine universe. This is a big one for me. Geiger has been the weakest of the Ghost Machine titles, but I still enjoy it. But in Geiger issue #10, we are going to see the return of Junkyard Joe. So I am so excited to see what's happening in Geiger #10. For the 3rd week of January of 2025, you know, the big one that's coming out that week is over at Marvel Comics, and it's Ultimate Wolverine #1. I'm excited for it. I'm going to give the first story arc a try, but I just don't see this book being the #1 issue of the week. And the thing was, there's so many other great things coming out that week, I couldn't decide once again. So I have another triple prediction. I've got Dick Tracy #7 over at Mad Cave Studios, Feral #9 over at Image, and Space Ghost #9 at Dynamite. These are all great titles. Will all these be my favorite? They could be, because of how great they are, but we'll see which one actually comes out on top. Or it could be something completely different. For the 4th week of January of 2024, there are so many great titles coming out that week. Alongside the 3rd issue of G.I. Joe from the Energon universe over at Image, the new issue of New Gods with issue #2 over at DC, and of course we've got The Moon is Following Us, issue #5 over at Image Comics. So there's so many great books coming out, but I seriously believe that that top spot for that week is going to go to Hyde Street #3 from Image Comics from Ghost Machine. This was a title I didn't know if I was going to enjoy or not, but not only have I loved the regular title, I even love the one-shot Devour. So they're just doing good things over at Image, as well as the Ghost Machine, and I'm here for it all. And for the final week of January 2025, even though we've got a brand new nostalgic title coming out from Dynamite from Ed Bryson, and that, of course, is one of my all-time favorite cartoons turned into a comic. That's Silverhawks issue #1. I don't think it's going to win, but I'm excited for it. Still, I think we're going to go back to Image Comics and give it to James Tynion IV's The Department of Truth, issue #28. Just because the Department of Truth is awesome. Cammy and I just did a video on the 3rd and 4th story arcs, and the 5th story arc was fantastic. This is the 6th story arc now. I'm just really excited to see how this story continues to grow and what's going to happen. And that's going to wrap up another episode of Stats, Trends, and Picks, the 1st of 2025. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Leave your comments in the box below. Let me know if I missed anything. Let me know what some of your favorite titles of 2024 were. Did you agree with my decisions, with my choices? And I'll see you in the next one.